Hi, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here and discussing a subject we are also well aware of. Like, as a human being, we are interested in what's happening all around us, all the time. And the curiosity to know things, the curiosity to observe things is what makes us different, what makes us informed citizens, decision makers, to some extent leaders. So in journalism, we are facing a critical situation. We're having, for the first time ever, the newsroom, the traditional, we call it legacy media, losing its footprints in different parts of the world. We're having the big brands of journalism, from Time magazine to Newsweek, losing its readership. And at the same time, we're seeing technology bringing a lot of solutions. So as someone who has been a journalist for 17 years, closely seen how things are reported and how they are reported, and also as a reporter, going to spaces and trying to understand what people are doing, and then explaining first personally to himself and then the editor how to tell that story. So there was a time when we used to go, and still do actually, to places, meet people, come back and tell a story. But there is also a time happening in the last 5, 10, 15 years, which has dramatically changed the landscape of media industry around the world. And that is actually the change which the digital technologies are creating. And that is the change, we call it a data-driven technologies. So my job today is actually to just share you a couple of thoughts with you, how this change is happening, and what is the future of data journalism, or say the journalism. Data is not something new actually. We have been dealing with data in newsrooms from the day the journalism has been practiced across the world. Like, I was checking the Outlook magazine, which is a popular leading news magazine of India. Its first edition was actually a data story of a survey conducted in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, telling the story, what the people want and all that. And if you look at the landline of the data journalism, the pie chart was created in almost 200 years back. That is how, pie is actually the first illustration to understand the analytics of data. And that actually was brought to the newsrooms. It's not really new. When people talk about data journalism, they say, wow, this is a fancy term created by Americans to grab market. But this is not really a new thing. Then you can see when the Guardian, the British leading newspaper was published, it started publication, the very first issue of the magazine, newspaper had a data story. Then if you look at different phases of since then, the newsrooms started to have computers, which actually changed the whole concept of how we write. There used to be time when people used to have a pen and copy, and they used to write the stories and submit to the editors. That changed when the newsrooms started having computers. And then we saw something phenomenal in last year. I don't know how many of you really heard about tax havens, or you heard about Panama Papers. Like, it was a one story which is called the biggest collaboration in the world of journalism. What was the story all about? The story was a data of powerful people from 200 countries. The powerful people included the prime ministers, the foreign ministers, the rich people, so many from our country who are having secret accounts in Panama. And that data got leaked, and it became a global story. Why it became a global story? Because it was a collaboration of journalists in so many different countries. The story got published one single day across the world. It was 11.2 or 3 million documents getting published on a single day around the world, because it was a collaboration of so many different organizations. And it was done by ICIJ, and as a member of ICIJ, it was the biggest proud, it's a proud moment for us, because journalism was seen so powerful, because you force corrupt people, you put people on accountability. Across the world, including in our country, if you have read Indian Express stories on Panama Papers, in Pakistan, Nawaz Sharif faced the legal procedure because of those stories. So a journalist is on a road that this data actually empower them so much that you can actually put top authorities in your country to accountability. Where is data coming from to us? It's coming all across. It's coming from everywhere to us, every day. Like if I ask you, each one of you here, for example, just count from yesterday. How much data have you produced? Like you have made phone calls, you have used ATMs, you have written, like we came to this hall, we wrote something at the reception desk, all is data, all is going to use, all has a value. So there was a time when you used to say like there was no data and the journalists used to hunt for stories because there were no stories all around. And now we are in a situation where there's no shortage of stories, there's no shortage of data. The data is produced so much every day that we don't have people actually capable to make sense of that data. If you just have a look at the number of files our government produces every day. I was sharing with someone, like every year we produce millions of documents in parliament, in state assemblies, audit reports. All these documents contain huge data, millions of data files. But there's no capacity in our newsrooms as such to understand what this data is telling us. And then we have no capacity to tell our audiences what is happening in our country, for example. And data has a significant value as well. You know, if you look at the numbers sometimes, for example, if you look at 2611, what does it really say? The moment I tell anybody 9/11, 26/11, they quickly understand what I am talking about. So data has its own way of conveying messages, even if these are numbers. The moment I said it, you say it's a terrorist attack, people got killed, it was painful, it was this. So data in itself is sometimes a story. And the time we are living in right now is revolutionizing the whole media industry across the world. Why it is happening? Because it's a unique movement. We never saw so much energy, so much technology coming so quickly into newsrooms, coming so quickly into industry. Last 10 or 15 years, like all of you, if you have been in the habit of reading newspapers or watching television channels, you can see the way you consume this news, the way you consume the data has changed. Most of you prefer to have a cell phone, and then most of you prefer to read newspapers on cell phone instead of buying it. That is a global trend. And once that happens, actually, it creates a new industry. An industry which is smart enough, which is innovative, which is also not fearful of breaking barriers or trying to create a new medium where we are all able to understand what I really need as a reader. That makes another significant contribution to the world of journalism. We used to have a concept called gatekeeping in journalism, which means that editor is a gatekeeper. A reporter files a story, it goes to editor, he sees whether the story is worth telling. And if it is fulfilling all norms of verification, attribution, and all that. If those stages are done, then the story goes to print next day and the readers read it. So that goalkeeping concept has actually changed other way around. Because what reader is actually doing right now, he is a gatekeeper to himself. What he wants to read, he will only download those apps. Like there are people, I've seen it very closely, they just want financial stories. They want to read the financial situation of the country. There are people who have an interest in health, for example. There are people who have a keen interest in sports. So they don't want to read anything else. They just want to read what's happening in this area. So that means something very important actually. It means that every individual is setting a control for his own taste, interest, or the particular area where he's interested to read and understand and empower himself. That is also a phenomenal change. Because at one time, the media thought that we are the masters to decide, to manipulate, to set an agenda for the rest of the people. But now that's not happening. The game is the other way around. That now what we are doing in newsrooms actually is that if you're a marketing guy, if you've got a job in industry, media industry, actually you're not setting the track. You are seeing what's happening all around the country, and then you're telling your editorial staff, can you please tailor the story according to this? Because this is happening, this is trending. People are loving it. So can you send a couple of more reporters to cover it and tell the bigger story and all that? So which is also a huge jump in terms of the way we generate content and the kind of content we generate. Because that actually is a lot of traditional organizations, unfortunately, are not still able to adjust to this change. There are legacy newspapers or organizations who have been in the market for 100 years. The Times of India, Hindustan Times, they are here. Much older than the freedom of this country. 150 years, 40 years, 30 years, they've been publishing. So these organizations are now spending a huge amount of resources, manpower, training, money to adjust to this huge digital landscape shift. Because if you don't do it, what's going to happen? Like, how many of you have been reading newspapers, magazines in the last 10, 15 years? And if you look at their revenues in terms of advertisement, in terms of their reach, it's changing. Time magazine used to be a world-class magazine. It used to have a bureau in India around 4 or 5 people. Today, all closed. It has closed almost every international office. It is reduced to a small office in New York, where from it's publishing 10 pages a week. That is the Time magazine for us. Though the brand is still big, we all love to read about who the Time puts on the cover. He becomes the man of the year, but the Time doesn't really know how to survive. So the media industry is going through a huge shift. And if leaders in the newsroom, both on the editorial side and the market side, don't get it right, they will lose on it. And that's why it's so important for us to understand the data shift as well. Today, the government around the world are very open about data. If you look at just 1 year in 2014, 4 million right to information applications were filed in India alone. 4 million. In America, look at American number, which is so, people say America is so open country and all that. Maybe because of population, we are also bigger, that's the reason. But still, it's a huge jump. 4 million applications in a year, and you'll be surprised the rate. Almost 98% of these applications were answered by the government. What does that mean for me as a journalist? That means I got 4 million stories to tell. Do I have the capacity to tell those stories? No. So I need to have analytical skills to understand what's happening, to put it together, give a broader picture. Look at this map, for example. It tells you the whole story about the global movement of open data governance. There's a country there, Sweden, which had the Right to Information Act almost 300 years back. We got our Right to Information Act just, I think, 12 years back. But there's still a huge area. If you can just see in this white area here, I think these countries are still, they don't still have the Right to Information Act. They're still struggling to kind of encourage their governments to be more open about the data. But luckily for us in India, we already are in this area. But the question for us is, who is going to make sense of this huge chunk of data, which our governments are producing every day? And what does that mean? When we produce so much data, is it just all useless data and then it doesn't matter to anybody, No, not really. The data has created a powerful impact on policies, on decisions, on governance. There have been stories on big global stories. I mentioned the Panama Papers. There have been stories in London about the expenditure of MPs. There have been stories about the national security. All these stories were told. They actually made a huge impact on the government's decision making. They made a right intervention if there's something was wrong. So data plays that role as well. And look at something like health. A lot of people say, in journalism, you start with a crime, you start with a crime reporting, then you go to the state reporting, municipality reporting, maybe do health reporting. Then you gradually join, national bureaus, you become a national affairs correspondent, you cover politics, and then that is the crown of journalism. If you become a political editor of any magazine or newspaper, you're the best person in that newsroom. We started something on health. We came back from national security and politics, and we started something on health. From the last 2 years, with the concept of how much data can we be able to analyze, visualize, and whether it will help in our decision making. What we have seen, there's a huge, tremendous scope of data-driven storytelling. Even on health, actually, it transformed the debate. Just, I think, 1 month back, this website was awarded by the British Medical Journal in an award which is called the Oscar of Medicines. So, remarkable opportunities out there, but the question still remains whether we have an understanding of the market, whether we have an understanding of the journalism, whether we have an understanding of data, and whether we are able and capable and willing to break that barrier. The fundamental thing in any field actually is being honest, is being truthful, is being transparent. And in data, it is really fundamental that you tell your audience who is giving you the data. Where are you getting this data? In journalism, we have a term, a word, which is a Bible for all newsrooms, which is attribution. Attribute data, where the data is coming from. If there's loopholes in data, explain that to audience, to readers. Because everybody may have an opinion, and in India, almost everyone has 10 opinions of 10 different things. But the fact of matter is, the data, the facts are second. You can't be dishonest with data. You can't be dishonest with facts. You may say whatever you want, but do you have facts right? Every person is entitled to have an opinion. But if you don't have it backed by data, backed by facts, it's not going to work. We believe that God, we believe for everything else, show me the data. Thank you so much.